Well, hi once again all my vintage motorcycle loving YouTubers, and thanks once more for joining me. Now this time round I'm going to take a short break from my usual classic dirt bike profile so that we can take a look at a very special little road racer I spotted recently at the Sammy Miller Museum. So I hope you'll stay with me for the next couple of minutes as we take a look at Duncan Mitchell's fascinating 1959 50cc 4-cylinder special. Now this bike is a very special motorcycle indeed, as it's a 1959 Duncan Mitchell 50cc 4-cylinder 2-stroke, and it's the only one of its kind in the world. Now this beautifully sculpted frame was made by Duncan himself out of 3/4 inch diameter 14 gauge tubing. Now the front forks are based on a trailing link design, and the rear shocks are Armstrong suspension units. Now, but the star of this particular show is that magnificently crafted 4-cylinder 50cc 2-stroke motor designed by Eric Fitz Hugh and manufactured by Duncan Mitchell. Now when I say 50cc, I mean 50cc total capacity and not 50cc per cylinder, just in case you're getting confused. Now it's a one-piece aluminium casting for the cylinder block, and a set of 4 steel liners are pressed into the block for the cylinders. Now the little minuscule pistons are of alloy and are connected to the crank by stainless steel conrods. Now an exposed spur gear drives this tiny clutch, which has 3 friction plates and 4 pressure springs. Now the motor is a 5-speed gearbox, and the gearbox is bolted on to the back of the crankcase. Now the crank itself is made up of 4 separate full disc flywheel assemblies, which are all pressed together and supported in 8 ball bearings. Now 2 separate castings are used for the cylinder heads, and these are fitted with 10mm spark plugs, and the firing order is 1, 4, 2, 3. Now it's said that this 50cc motor puts out about 5 brake horsepower. Now it's quite a large fuel tank for such a small motor, but nevertheless it does complement the build of this very unique motorcycle. But the crank itself is made up of 4 separate full disc flywheel assemblies, which are pressed together and supported in 8 ball bearings. Now the bike has 1 coil per cylinder, and each has its own contact breaker, and these receive their power from a single 6-volt battery, as the motor runs on total loss ignition with no magneto. Now each cylinder has its very own AMAL 10mm carburetor, and the fuel is fed from flat float petrol bowls. But it's very unique to have such a small motor being fed with 4 individual carburetors. But the engineering on this little bike is truly exceptional and speaks volumes for Eric Fitz Hugh, who designed the motor, and of course to Duncan Mitchell, who put it all together. Now although this little engine was run after its construction, it was never ever put on a racetrack due to some kind of financial difficulties. Although when Eric Fitz Hugh designed the original motor, he never actually got round to fitting his little 4-cylinder engine into a frame, so we have to be thankful that Duncan Mitchell took it one step further and completed the project and constructed this lovely frame to complement Fitz Hugh's original design. Now, just for reference, this is a normal run-of-the-mill 50cc piston, and this little beauty has 4 12mm pistons, so this will give you an idea of just how small the pistons are on this machine. Now, both you and I could only guess as to how sweet this little engine would sound when it got fired up, but of all the bikes that I saw at the Sammy Miller Museum that day, this was the machine that actually intrigued me the most. And just to give you an indication of how big the pistons would be on this, the diameter of the spark plugs are a very good reference as to the size of the pistons in this superb 4-cylinder machine. Although the engineering that's gone into building such a small engine with 4 cylinders, 4 carburetors, and all its other associated ignition parts and clutch and gearbox parts is just really fascinating, and this is a superb little 2-stroke 4-cylinder machine. So anyhow, there you have it, something a bit different and interesting here on my channel. That's Duncan Mitchell's 50cc 4-cylinder road racer. Now please stay tuned for more classic motorcycles coming soon, and stay safe until we speak once more.